Ilia Topuria. Hard name, worth remembering. So, I just want to make sure that this is in perspective so that this doesn't get lost. There's things that you can do in 3 fights that somebody else would need 3 years to do, right? Based on competition, based on placement. Ilia Topuria, and let me personalize this. I have a group chat going on with Brendan and Jesse. And if you could hack into that chat, you would be about 4 months ahead. Information that the 3 of us would have and then we have to contain, or a secret, or that goes on in our little sewing circle. About 4 months from now, it will be getting revealed to you. Some of the fights that are done, some of the matchups, some of the directions in both boxing and MMA. It's a really interesting chat. That is my point. But I bring it to you because I don't know that Brendan and Jesse, and I'll put myself in this, have ever commented with more enthusiasm because of the surprise, right? The surprise factor is a hell of an impressive thing. But Ilia Topuria dominated Josh Emmett. And Josh Emmett is as good of a fighter as I've seen in the last 10 years. Hello? In the last 10 years, Josh Emmett is as good as anybody that I've seen. Now, a couple of parts here, I don't want you to miss them. How do you know Ilia Topuria? How do you know Ilia Topuria? Ilia Topuria is Mr. Water Bottle. Do you remember this now? Paddy the Baddy bursts on the scene. He starts getting all sorts of attention, starts getting all sorts of money, starts getting all sorts of placements, starts getting all sorts of reaction from the crowd and interest in the sport. And he ends up in some dust-up where Ilia Topuria wanted to get to him but couldn't. Like, people were keeping him back. So Topuria picks up a water ball and throws it at him. I think he hit him. And don't think you have to correct me on those details. I mean, this is off the top of my head, and I'm okay if I've got that wrong. Maybe it was thrown the other way and you understand the whole thing. But Ilia Topuria was really hard to say. So Paddy the Baddy, as an attempt to be condescending to him, nicknamed him Mr. Water Bottle. Now, that was an incredible match, or I could say potential match at the time. And I remember looking into that. I was looking up Topuria, and he was like 14-2. You know, this is a good year ago, 2 years ago, but he's like 14-2. He was a nasty, nasty guy. People just didn't know who he was. He couldn't get on the docket with Paddy the Baddy. Paddy the Baddy's selling out arenas. Filling up arenas, the A side of the entire evening. Topuria just couldn't get him, and they were separated by a weight class. And I'm telling you all of this just so you have a reference of who Ilia Topuria is. So, you see him last night, he's in there with Josh Emmett. Josh Emmett, while being as good as anyone I've seen in the last 10 years, one of the prized accomplishments of Uriah Faber as a coach is Josh Emmett. That's a big statement. And that's also recognized. That's not just Chael's opinion. That is recognized, evident of the fact that he fought for a championship. His last fight was for a championship. That's how good Josh is. Josh lost the fight and returned to a main event. That is extremely hard to do. It is extremely hard to get beat no matter the circumstance and have your next fight be a main event, but that's how good he is. And I just want Josh to get credit for that. But it is important that you understand that from a perspective of 145 pounds. Because as you're watching Topuria and Emmett, you can't help but do MMA math. And people love to tell you that MMA math doesn't work. I don't know why they say that. MMA math works all the time. It's not foolproof, but it's damn effective. Okay, great. So let's take Ilia Topuria. who have a 25-minute fight, won 25 minutes against Josh Emmett, who's a straight-up badass. And Josh Emmett was competitive in several areas of the fight with Yair Rodriguez. Several areas of that fight, he was very competitive. And if time would have kept going or another round would have happened, it's very realistic where you could have watched that fight and at least dreamed or fantasized that the outcome could be different. And you couldn't dream or fantasize that if there was another round or another minute or another 5 rounds, that last night's outcome would have been different. It's a very interesting thing. And I'm using Topuria and I'm using Emmett, who were on display last night. But I'm using them to build a bridge to Rodriguez, who is all but dismissed against Volkanovski. Yair Rodriguez is one of the greater and more difficult challenges of Volkanovski's career. Now, that's hard to say when Volk just got out of there with Islam, when Volk's been in there 3 times. I said 3 times. I said 3 times with Max Holloway. It's really hard to say who his hardest opponent is. But it might be Yair Rodriguez. And Yair is working this new strategy, and he's been doing it for about 2 years, and it's worked very well for him. But he's staying humble and he's staying quiet. And he's humbly and he's quietly racking up wins over the best guys in the world. And Yair Rodriguez is quietly the champion of the world. And you'll meet the real jerks that like to say that's not true. It's interim champion. Okay, great. We can both be right. It's interim champion of the world. I don't make these things up. It's written right on the belt. He's the interim champion of the world, but he's very quietly. And he's allowing Volkanovski to have a diatribe and a narrative of Volkanovski versus Islam in a rematch. That rematch is predicated on a preconceived victory by Volkanovski over Rodriguez. And Rodriguez is letting this go. Now, 3 years ago, Rodriguez won it. 3 years ago, this would have pissed him off. He would have spoken up. It's a strategy. It's a new strategy to be quiet and be under the radar. I think it's working. And while everybody is looking the other way and nobody's giving Rodriguez his due, the weeks are ticking down. This fight is getting closer, and make no mistake, that's a live dog.